back with us at the packed Catalonia circuit just outside of Barcelona. We are all set for the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's join Martin Brundle and first of all say good afternoon to James. James Allen.
Thank you very much, Jim. What a fantastic atmosphere here in Barcelona. Formula One fever, Spanish style. 115,000 people crammed into this wonderful stadium. We've got a sky of blue and a sea of blue shirts and caps in the grandstands. Welcome to Alonso country. Well, the 23-year-old has set Spanish hearts racing this year by winning 3 straight races, and he comes here as the first Spaniard ever to lead the World Championship. And what a lead. 29 points over Kimi Räikkönen and 26 points over Michael Schumacher. But Räikkönen is the great threat today. The 25-year-old Finn grabbed his 2nd consecutive pole this morning, and surely he can't have a repeat of the shocking luck which robbed him of victory in Imola a fortnight ago. Well, McLaren has an updated car here, more powerful engine, better aerodynamics, and let me tell you, it's really, really quick. But is it reliable? Well, Imola was the only blot on their reliability landscape so far, but the big question mark for Räikkönen, he does need the big 10 points here this afternoon. His teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya, is back too, after 5 weeks on the sidelines with a broken shoulder, not helped by a 140-mile-an-hour accident on Friday in free practice, but he says he's okay. Well, today will certainly be a serious physical test for him. He looks strong at the moment, and crucially, he's qualified in front of Michael Schumacher. They start together on row 4. Montoya 7th, Michael Schumacher 8th on the grid. I believe they have a similar race strategy, and that will certainly be for a fantastic battle between those two, who've had plenty of good battles before in their time. There you can see the grid. Webber there, I suppose, the standout in qualifying. Tremendous effort to get that Williams up onto the front row of the grid. He had all sorts of engine dramas, meant he didn't run at all on Friday, so what a recovery for Mark Webber. Alonso, the danger man. Renault have done a lot of work on their starts, and they now believe they're as good in this system as they were in the old days of launch control. So watch out for Alonso diving up the inside of Webber into the first corner. If those of you remember last year, Trulli in 4th place in the Renault was leading the first lap. So we do get a long run down here to the first corner, and some interesting things can happen at the start. Ferrari, well, they haven't really looked themselves all weekend. Certainly not the sort of pace we saw at Imola 2 weeks ago. Their race pace is a little bit hard to predict. Everybody seems to be writing them off, but you can never really write off Ferrari when it comes to the Grand Prix itself. So we will see a podium for Schumacher today, quite possible. Barrichello, the teammate, right down the back of the grid. He has to have an engine change, as does Nick Heidfeld in the BMW Williams. And just look at this amazing banner. Barcelona, the sworn enemy of Madrid in just about every aspect of Spanish life, backing their rival for the 2012 Olympics. But I think London and Paris will have a thing or two to say about that. Well, the other standout story going into this Grand Prix, as Martin alluded to on the grid, is the absence of Jenson Button and the BAR Honda team. And some big words been flying around this weekend. Cheating, for example, is a very, very big word in sport. And certainly BAR Honda have been banned for 2 races for a system in the fuel and a weight at the end of the Imola Grand Prix, which did not conform to the regulations. We've heard about the court case from Ted Kravitz. We've heard all about it from the weekend. The net result is we've only got 18 cars on the grid, and BAR Honda will not race here or in Monaco. 2 Grand Prix that they felt they had a great, great chance of winning. But we do have 18 cars. We've got at least 4 of them competitive for the race victory today. It's wide open. It's a fiesta Spanish style, isn't it, Martin?
Yeah, we could do with Webber getting away best on the right-hand side of the grid, although I think that's, to a certain extent, unlikely. We are hearing, and it's interesting that Fernando took the trouble to walk over to Mark Webber from 3rd place to 2nd place, saying, hey, we have improved our starts. And we're certainly hearing that in the paddock as well, and they're confident they should have some of their old advantage back. And as you say, it's a very, very long run down to that first corner. So a lot of interesting challenges for the drivers on the grid, drivers with a lot of time and places to make up, others with very much, I think, places to defend this afternoon, and Alonso with a lot of pressure on his shoulders in terms of the crowd, of course, and not least a big World Championship lead.
Yeah, at what point do you start thinking about the championship? At what point do you just think about each race, taking it as it comes? Alonso says he's still just taking things as they come, trying to get the maximum out of every single Grand Prix, and pretty much every driver will tell you that when you ask them about Grand Prix racing. But there comes a moment when they realise that the championship is a possibility, and for Alonso with that kind of margin, just look, 26 points over Schumacher, 29 over Raikkonen, where he must be thinking that if he can keep his head down and keep notching up the podiums, and he is, after all, the only man to have stood on the podium in every Grand Prix this season so far, that he could become the youngest ever world champion at the end of the season. How this crowd would like that.
Yes, and the way the point system works now, I don't know if you said this while I was walking up to the commentary box, James. If you did, I apologise. But if Michael won every race from here on in and Fernando Alonso was second, it would still be race 17 out of 19 before Michael took the World Championship. Such is the way the point scoring works. So it's going to rely on unreliability or driver error or tripping over somebody for Fernando Alonso to allow, I think, certainly Michael Schumacher. Schumacher and, for me, Kimi Raikkonen are the two men that have got the equipment and the wherewithal to go and take the fight to Fernando Alonso.
And the will as well. Certainly in the Constructors' Championship today, just saw the McLaren there, 4 points behind Toyota. Good chance for them to move up into second place in the championship. Although both Toyotas are strongly running at the moment. 4th and 5th on the grid. Ralf Schumacher, for the first time this season, out-qualifying his teammate, Jarno Trulli. Good effort from Ralf over the two qualifying sessions. And the car certainly seems hooked up on the Friday practice. Both Toyotas lapping very strongly in the low 1 minute 17s on long runs. Laps in the mid to high 117s from the other front runners. So they're on the pace, Toyota.
It surprised me, just the few drivers I've tripped over this morning. I've asked them all about tyre wear. They've all, yeah, it's a problem, it's an issue, but they're all Michelin drivers, actually, that I've talked to. Didn't get to either two Ferrari drivers who are on the harder Bridgestone. So we could well see, I think, a swap over of form in the later stages of this Grand Prix.
Well, Pat Simmons of Renault, the engineering director, said you probably see a bigger disparity between the way the different cars use their tyres here today than we've seen all season. Those of you who have been following it all on F1 ITV with us will know that that's saying something, because some of the hot races like Malaysia and Bahrain, we saw a big difference in the way the cars use their tyres. So it's an awful lot of interesting factors going into this Grand Prix, in addition to the wide open competitiveness at the front.
What they're doing now is switching off the traction control to spin up the wheels, get some surface temperature into the rear tyres to minimise the wheel spin, and use of traction control to get the drive off the line that they need. And there's a Sauber that is crossways. He turned too late into his box.
Yeah, strange position. When the lights go off, we'll be racing 66 laps at Barcelona. Begin now. Great start for Raikkonen, and Alonso has passed Webber. He's got him on the run down to turn 1. Someone's gone on the grass. There's a lot of action there. One of the Toyotas, I believe, was involved in that. Look at Fisichella coming down the inside. Webber has been bumped down into 3rd place by one of the two Renaults. Raikkonen leads then. Alonso up into 2nd. We've got a Minardi stalled on the start line, and Webber, as we feared, has dropped down into 4th place off the start line.
And that's bad news where that Minardi is stalled. It's on the exit of the fast corner, albeit on the inside of the racetrack. 3 or 4 cars at the back of the grid didn't get away properly, and one, of course, then didn't get away at all. And understandably, they have deployed the safety car, the double waved yellows. In fact, there were at least 2 cars then that didn't get away, and the clutch mechanism that the marshals should have easily to hand to push is not functioning on one of the Minardis.
It's both the Minardis that have stalled on the grid. The 2 cars are being pushed off the grid, so they got about as far as the start-finish line, the 2 brand new Minardis, before their race was run. Christian Albers and Patrick Friesacker. What frustration for Minardi team. You come all this way, you put all the practice laps in, you serve countless bowls of pasta to your sponsor guests, and you go 60 yards.
Now, Paul Stoddart not here this weekend to see this unfolding. He'll be on the phone in a hurry. So 1 car parked out on racetrack, but the cars will now be there 2 corners away from appearing on the pit straight behind the safety car. And this idea of bringing the safety car much further upstream so it picks up the drivers before they get to the danger zone at the start is very good and very clever.
Well, this will push the pit stops back a little bit. Another look at the start. You can see the Minardis at the back not moving. Watch out for Alonso on your right, behind Raikkonen. And you can see it was Montoya that went up onto the grass. There's the 2 Minardis going nowhere, but you see that dust and flying through the air. It's Montoya. Watch out for him. You see them Sauber out of position.
I wouldn't be surprised if Villeneuve, there's a Jordan Toyota in the back as well got away, so it wouldn't be at all surprised if Villeneuve was out of position on the start and may get penalised for that. He turned too late. They stay on the left-hand side, the cleaner side, to keep their tyres as clean as possible, as long as possible, and he turned too late across to the right-hand side. If you think a London taxi's got a good turning lock, well, these are exactly the opposite. They're terrible for any kind of steering lock on a Formula 1 car because of the steering geometry in the fat front tyres.
Well, the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. We'll be green flag racing, just one lap down then under the safety car. The order: Raikkonen, Alonso, Ralf Schumacher, third, Webber down to fourth, Trulli fifth, sixth is Fisichella, seventh Michael Schumacher, got in front of Montoya. That's absolutely crucial for the story of this Grand Prix, and for Michael's story particularly. Montoya will be desperately trying to get him back off the restart. Coulthard is 9th, Massa 10th, Villeneuve 11th. And here it is on board with Alonso. No problem at all out dragging that BMW Williams down the start line. Once again, Williams very poor off the start.
It's all about electronics and the clutch mechanism, how the clutch comes in and bites, and weight distribution of the car, the aero, because as soon as you're up to, say, 50 miles an hour, 80 kilometers per hour, the aero is having quite a dramatic effect already, even in those early stages of the acceleration zone down to turn 1. And all of those factors come together, and there Heidfeld and Rubens at the back very neatly threading their way through the non-starters.
That was amazing. Heidfeld, inches to spare from hitting the back of that Minardi. So Raikkonen bunches them up. It's up to him when he drops the gas to get this race started again. The safety car will have pulled out in front of him, come into the pit lane, coming off turn 13. They're trying to get these two Minardis going again, trying to get them into the race. But we should concentrate on the restart because it's imminent. The safety car, I can see, is coming down into the pit lane now. Raikkonen starts to pick up the pace out of 12 and up the hill down towards 13. The two Minardis trying to get themselves going as Kimi Raikkonen exits the final turn, and he's built himself a pretty healthy lead already with a very cunning restart. Alonso caught napping a little bit there, and Raikkonen leads.
Absolutely, Alonso was not ready at all for that. Kimi Raikkonen had 10 car lengths on him, 2 corners from the end of the lap. As soon as the safety car pulls off, look, we've got a pass going on at the back. Montoya and Michael Schumacher, and Montoya makes his way up to P7. He got a run out of the final corner on the Ferrari of Schumacher. Coulthard now homing in on Michael Schumacher.
I said that was going to be absolutely vital for Montoya to get Schumacher back off the restart. We've seen before the Bridgestone tyres, when they cool down a little bit behind the safety car, they don't have that bite on the restart that the Michelins have, and once again Montoya has used that to tremendous advantage. We're going to keep an eye on that scrap because it's the battle for 7th, but it's going to be a big story in this Grand Prix.
As ever, Montoya, who spent so long in America making best use of these safety car periods, yellow flag situations. But as as you say, James, it's absolutely right. The Bridgestones are taking much longer to come up to temperature. That's really hurting them.
Well, we saw Barrichello and Heidfeld at the back of the field, and off the restart, I can tell you that Heidfeld has managed to get himself up into 12th place. Barrichello is down in 14th, stuck behind Liuzzi at the moment, so he's struggling to make some progress. Nick Heidfeld's making great progress, though. Have to watch out for him over the course of the Grand Prix. He's behind Villeneuve at the moment, and that's an interesting scrap as well. Look at the lead, though, that the front two have got. Raikkonen at the end of lap 3, 2 seconds clear of Alonso. Then another 2 seconds back is Ralf Schumacher. Webber is right with Ralf Schumacher. Trulli's right with him. There you can see Jarno Trulli with Fisichella close up behind him as well. The man who replaced him in the Renault team took that famous victory at Melbourne at the start of the season. Montoya is just a second shy of the Renault in 7th, and Michael Schumacher a second and a half behind Montoya on that lap alone.
Yeah, Raikkonen is flying at the front though, absolutely flying. He's got confidence, speed. We've seen, I just don't know how McLaren haven't won more races this year in terms of they've got the speed. They've just been tripping over each other a bit, unreliability, but is that car good? And we know that it's the best car out there for looking after its tyres through a Grand Prix too. Ted has some news.
Yeah, down at Minardi, it was a programming problem in the software of the master control unit for both cars.
Thank you for that, Ted. Well, the track temperature here now 44 degrees, the air temperature 24. It's hot at Barcelona, and certainly at the moment the Michelin seem to be enjoying that. Kimi Raikkonen's pace is similar to the pace at in the early stages of last year's Grand Prix, and if you bear in mind all the changes that they've made this year, 1 set of tyres for qualifying and the race, 2 race engines, lots of aerodynamics taken off the cars, as much as 20% in the initial phases. It's absolutely staggering that these cars are going faster now as Raikkonen bangs in a 17.6. They're going faster now than they were at this stage of the race last year.
Yeah, that's stunning pace. The track's in good nick, isn't it? And that's Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Felipe Massa, 8, 9 and 10. Massa's 12 seconds off the lead, and they're on lap 5. All of those safety car laps count towards the Grand Prix distance. There'll be some feverish recalculations going on because the cars use less than half as much fuel on a safety car lap as they do when they're on a hot lap.
Well, let's just talk about the race strategy, shall we? Certainly the last few years it's been a 3-stop race, but with no advantage to putting on a set of new tyres, because you don't get any in the pit stop now. They stretch them out to probably a 2-stopper for most people. And certainly the word in the paddock was that Raikkonen, possibly Alonso, pitting around about lap 23 of this Grand Prix. Montoya and Michael Schumacher a little bit later, around about lap 28. At the moment, Raikkonen, though, scorching away from Alonso. Ralf Schumacher 3rd, Webber 4th, Trulli 5th, and Fisichella in 6th. On board then with David Coulthard. We're travelling at 200 miles an hour down the main pit straight here in Barcelona. About to hit the brakes and slow it down to about 80 miles an hour for turn 1. Coulthard in 9th place here and going well in the Red Bull racing car, hoping that some people in front of him will hit some problems during the afternoon, because there is probably a point or two to be had for Coulthard here.
Yes, amazing. Raikkonen's done a 1 minute 17.3. That's faster than any lap turned last year. And he's got to use those tyres for the rest of the afternoon. Michael Schumacher would have had 4 new sets of tyres to do that with last year, as Montero gathering himself up from the dust on the outside of what I think was turn 4.
Yeah, he's been off the road a few times, Thiago Montero, this weekend, always trying to squeeze a bit of speed out of the Jordan. It doesn't seem willing to offer him. Here's Ralf Schumacher. He's currently in a podium-paying position, 3rd place, just over 5 seconds behind the race leader, and it's something of a renaissance for Ralf Schumacher this weekend. As long as his teammate is behind him, he will be happy. He's also got Webber between himself and his teammate at the moment. And, well, it's interesting. We were talking about the relative strategies of Montoya and Michael Schumacher, but at the moment, Montoya is dropping Michael Schumacher in 8th place, lapping 7 or 8 tenths of a second faster than the Ferrari. So we'll keep an eye on that one. You can see Liuzzi as well, still sandwiched between Heidfeld and Barrichello. 13th place for him, his 2nd Grand Prix start for the Red Bull Racing team. Christian Klien expected to come back in Nürburgring after Liuzzi's had a go at Monaco. I think Klien will be a bit frustrated that he's not driving the car in Monte Carlo, but such is the system at Red Bull Racing anyway. Lap 7 of 66. And Raikkonen once again is on a new fastest lap. This is what we saw in Imola, isn't it? Just pulling away in the early stages. A CV joint broke in the car there. Terrible luck for him. Hopefully here he will be able to get the race when he desperately needs. Seven laps gone out of the 66 here in Barcelona. Kimi Raikkonen is pulling away slowly from Fernando Alonso. Alonso's trying very, very hard to respond, though. He's the only other man lapping in the 1 minute 17s, but Raikkonen's pace is absolutely mesmerising as Montoya, who was pulling away from Michael Schumacher in 7th place, has a full 360, gathers it up. It's turn 8, and I wonder whether Michael got past him. The computer says he didn't, but it's showing Montoya that last lap a 1:22.7 and Michael Schumacher a 1:19.8, so the gap is now down to nothing, and Montoya, he got away with it.
He did get away with it, and just behind Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Felipe Massa, a lot of them are less than 2 seconds adrift of Montoya now, so that cost him dearly this afternoon. I think he's got a good amount of fuel on, as I'm sure has Raikkonen and Alonso. Raikkonen has done a new circuit lap record on lap 6 of a 1:17.196. Stunning pace at the front of the field.
He's on for an even better one here. He might crack into the 16s on this lap. It's all purple sectors on the computer here for Kimi Räikkönen. He is driving the race of his life, pulling away, trying to open out a gap in the way that Alonso has done. 1:16.962 for Kimi Räikkönen. Alonso tries desperately to respond. He's bringing his lap times down by the same kind of increments, but they started higher. 1:17.5 for Alonso, and he can't respond.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that Kimi feels the need to keep pumping them. He's on an...
Absolutely furious at Juan Pablo Montoya. They haven't been too happy with him on his Grand Prix return, especially after he wrecked the car in that crash before qualifying.
Yeah, interesting emotions then on the pit wall, but they've got one car way out front, 4.6 seconds at the moment. He's coming up to put what will be the third lap on the Minardi because, of course, it didn't get off the start line. Neither Minardi got away and had to be fired up in the pits.
Yeah, one of the McLaren people who shall definitely remain nameless said the other day, it's not going very well for Juan Pablo with us yet, is it? I'll say that again. 5 weeks on the sideline with a broken shoulder, 2 races missed, both of which is the people replacing him out qualified the best that Montoya had done up to that point. Here this weekend, 140-mile-an-hour crash. Mechanics working till 3 a.m. to fix the car on Friday night. And, well, he's certainly keeping Michael Schumacher behind him, but it's spirited stuff keeping that car going. There is Montoya, and there is Michael Schumacher with David Coulthard breathing down his neck in 9th place, and Felipe Massa in the Sauber trying to keep Coulthard honest. Interesting battle, Martin, between Red Bull Racing and Sauber today to pick up some points. Everybody aware that with BAR Honda not here this weekend, for those midfield teams, a great chance to pick up a few more points. Yeah, some cheaper points to be had this weekend. Coulthard's changed his chassis and he seems much happier, back on the pace again now that he showed in the first 2 Grand Prix. And, well, he's used to chasing down Michael Schumacher, but it hasn't always been for 8th and 9th in the past, as when he was at McLaren. Michael must have a lot of fuel on board, but his pace is such that he's now 24 seconds away and falling dramatically. He's doing 1:19.6 and Raikkonen's doing the 1:16.9. That's not fuel. Nowhere. That's not fuel. Even if there was a lot more fuel, it's not fuel. Unfortunately, if you look at what the other Bridgestone runners are doing, the Jordans and the Minardis, it tells you the story. Carter Cayen lapping in the low 21s, Montero low 20s, and the 2 Minardis in the 21s as well. I don't think those Bridgestones are enjoying this Spanish Grand Prix 2005 very much. Liuzzi. Oh, Liuzzi off. He's not had a stellar weekend, has he? And the boy's very good. I think they expected him to be night and day ahead of Klein, but Klein raised his game this year, no doubt about it. And that is that tricky little, what I've numbered as turn 11, that's caught a few people out in various formulas this weekend. Yeah, difficult corner. Christian Klein hoping to be back in the car at the Nürburgring. Red Bull Racing having the second driver alternating every 3 Grand Prix. If you remember, Klein had a cracking start to the season. First 3 races scoring points, and Liuzzi, well, he grabbed a point after the BARs were disqualified from Imola, but it's not gone well this weekend, as Martin was saying, and I think he put that one down to youthful exuberance. Here's your race leader, Kimi Räikkönen, lap 11 of 66, and once again he is on his way to a new fastest lap. This is going to be something in the mid 1:16s, which I tell you is a second faster than the similar pace of the pace we had at this stage of the Grand Prix last year. That's extraordinary that the cars have been made slower, and yet here we are 5 races in, and this race is the race time is going to be much faster than last year's. A 16.5, a 1:16.5. Alonso comes over in a 1:17.6. The gap up to 7.7 seconds. Raikkonen is flying. If he pits at any time near Alonso or the other key runners, he's got this race comfortably in the bag. And that's stunning pace, but he's pushing the car so hard. He's already faster yet again in the first sector on this current lap, which is lap 12. No, Trulli is the interesting one. His race pace is always worth watching. When the Toyota's going well, he can run with the front runners no problem, as we saw in Malaysia, for example, and Bahrain. Tremendous performances. Sometimes when it's not going so well, as in Imola, you remember he had a queue of cars behind him, and I think we might be getting into a scenario a bit like that fairly soon. He's in 5th place with Fisichella and Montoya behind him, but interesting to keep an eye on that situation. Remember in qualifying, we suspected Mark Webber may have a bit less fuel on board to get himself a better grid slot, which didn't pay off.
away from the start line, sadly. But if he's got to stop maybe one more time than the Toyota in front of him, Ralf Schumacher, this is really hurting his race. It's absolutely destroyed his strategy, if we're right.
Well, Rubens Barrichello will have been one of the few people happy to see Liuzzi spinning off the racetrack, because it meant that he could pick the pace up. He's now close behind Nick Heidfeld. Those two who started from the back, having taken engine changes in the Ferrari and the Williams respectively, trying to pick their way through the field, and they are now right up behind Jacques Villeneuve in the Sauber, who's not had a tremendous weekend here. It's been a difficult time for Villeneuve. On board with Webber then in 4th place, just 7/10 behind Ralf Schumacher in front. They had quite a spirited battle in Malaysia, didn't they? Hopefully we're about to get one joined here in Barcelona as well. This is lap 13.
James, that's sort of qualifying speed. Low 1:16. The best time we saw this morning was a 16.6.
On that, I mean, they're never going to tell the driver to slow down, I would imagine, not at this early stage of the Grand Prix, but he clearly feels the need, as you say, to really put the hammer down, extend the margin. I think he's also proving a little point as well about how McLaren are serious championship contenders this year, and their form up to this point, well, certainly their results up to this point hasn't really shown that, but they've always been quick right from the get-go. And it's just been a combination of bad luck and circumstances that have led them to have so few points on the board compared to Fernando Alonso. There's Kartikeyan, like his teammate, sampling the dust and not letting his teammate through. Yes, he does. He gets on the dust as well, getting around the outside of Kartikeyan.
And Montero should have realised Kartikeyan would be busy watching himself and sorting himself out, would not have noticed him coming around the outside. But he's made the place anyway.
Yeah, that's for 14th then. Montero up to 14th, Kartikeyan down to 15th. Only one retirement so far from this Grand Prix, and that's the spinner, Antonio Liuzzi. Everybody else is still running, 17 cars still going then. Spanish director, not surprisingly, favouring Fernando Alonso. Running a little bit of a solitary race at the moment in 2nd place. 10.5 seconds down on Raikkonen, 3.5 in front of Ralf Schumacher. I suppose he won't be too unhappy with that. Certainly as long as Michael Schumacher's well behind him, that's the most important thing for Alonso. Lap 15 of 66 here in Barcelona. We ride on board with Mark Webber. He's in 4th place, and he's closing down on Ralf Schumacher, who in turn is closing down on Fernando Alonso in 2nd place. But at the front, Kimi Raikkonen is once again on target to set a new fastest lap. He's already deep into the 1:16s and pulling away from Alonso. The pace of this McLaren is absolutely mesmerising at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Well, later on, that's up at turn 4. Somebody, turn 3, I think, actually. Somebody's gone off the road quite heavily, probably made it. And that's Frisacker in the Minardi. So that's pretty much completing a dismal afternoon for them. And that time around, Raikkonen increases lead by 2 seconds. I wonder where Alonso lost that time and why. He's really been going quite slowly this last 2 or 3 laps, Alonso. So I wonder if there's a little gremlin creeping in there somewhere. Ralf Schumacher now down to just 2.2 seconds behind him in 3rd place. And Louise has very quickly found Antonio Liuzzi.
Yeah, Antonio Liuzzi, who has a very disappointed face, which probably tells the story.
Yes, we had a problem since the beginning, from the start. We couldn't move up from the grid properly, and after the car in the first 4 or 5 laps was sliding all over the place. There was something wrong, but the end in corner 7, I was pushing because I was trying to catch Heidfeld, and just the rear locks, and we went out.
Thanks, Tonio.
Well, Alonso trying to respond now. He obviously had a poor lap. We didn't see why. It could well have been lap traffic. We've gone Albers and Frisacker have both been lapped and it could well have been that, but whatever it was, certainly Alonso now is picking the pace up again. He's trying to keep the gap to Ralf Schumacher well above 2 seconds if he can. Looking down there, you can see just touching something on his steering wheel, making a small adjustment. So much that they can control from the steering wheel of these cars now, isn't there?
Is indeed. Webber's just done his fastest lap of the race. He's still hustling Ralf Schumacher, and well, he's only 8/10 behind, but when we go on board with Webber, we'll see there's just a little dot on the horizon. That's how far a Formula 1 car travels in 8/10 of a second. We'll pick that up next time we're on board with him. But Alonso looking slightly tentative at the wheel, you'd have to say.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting position that he finds himself in, trying to answer the needs of 115,000 of his fellow countrymen. This is pretty new territory for the Spaniards, let's not forget. They've been here before for years in bike racing. Well, on 4 wheels, they've never had a front-running Formula 1 star, and it reminds me of when Schumacher came along in the early 90s and how that transformed Germans' appreciation of the sport. And you can see a lovely super slow-mo of that swoopy, sculpty bodywork of the Renault. So signs that perhaps Germany's appreciation of the sport slightly on the wane. The crowd's not been quite so good at Nürburgring and Hockenheim recently, but tell you what, there's a real passion for Formula 1 here in Barcelona, and the grandstand's full of these beautiful blue flags. By coincidence, the blue of the Renault team is also the same blue of the local flag of Alonso's region, Asturias. And you see the flags with the crosses on them, the blue flag with the yellow cross. What a coincidence that it should be the same as the corporate colours of Renault. They're loving it because they've never sold so many shirts as they have this weekend.
Raikkonen's just done it again, another new lap record, a 1:16.1. Alonso's response, a 1:18.0. The gap now 15.4 seconds. Alonso's very inconsistent. We haven't seen him off the road or locking wheels. In fact, we've seen plenty of him, but each time it's been in a slow-mo, and he appears to be on the right bits of the racetrack. But Alonso dramatically falling behind and into the clutches of Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place.
It's not as if he's sort of pacing himself, is it? As you say, the lap time's sometimes good, sometimes not so good. If he was thinking, well, I'll settle for 2nd here and just keep Ralf behind me, it's a bit early in the race to be saying that. One interesting thing though, Martin, is the pace of Montoya. He is now in clear air. He's got Michael Schumacher behind him, and in clear air, as Raikkonen is, he's lapping almost, well, 1.5, 2 seconds a lap slower than his teammate. Extraordinary. I wonder if how much of that is that shoulder injury that he's still carrying. Into the pits comes the first pitter, and that is Mark Webber, as we suspected then, carrying a little bit less fuel. Now he has the option of stopping 3 times in this race, coming in this early in the Grand Prix. Let's see how much fuel goes in. Anything under 7.5 means he's stopping 3 times. Seems strange not to change the tyres. Still can't get used to that. No, this is a 2-stopper. Off he goes.
I suspect they've changed that strategy then, James, but obviously a bad start, disadvantaging behind Ralf. They've had to put some more fuel in and change their concept of how to run the afternoon. Webber will feed back in. He's the man we expected in first.
Well, he feeds in behind Felipe Massa, I think that was, in the Sauber, so that puts him down in 10th place then. So quite an expensive pit stop. We've seen that pattern with the rules in 2005. If you make a pit stop early, everybody just goes sailing past you, and you really do lose a lot of track position. That's what Raikkonen's keen to avoid, trying to pull out as much time as he can over the field.
Another 5 laps, he's got a pit stop in his pocket anyway, a spare pit stop in terms of time, and he's still pumping in fastest sectors, so he just doesn't want to give up. Obviously it's easy for him. He's not locking wheels and sliding all over the place, making mistakes. He's not on the ragged edge. Clearly he is absolutely feeling good about that car, and this racetrack, because corners very much lead one to another, if the car's underneath you, you just build up. It compounds like a snowball all around the lap, and that's why you see such a disparity in lap times. If your car's not working, you just can't manhandle it through these 150-mile-an-hour corners.
Well, he's only won 2 races in his career. It seems extraordinary, Kimi Raikkonen, to be into that position, but it's won a year in 03 and 04. Desperate to get one on the board in 05 and make that not a single for the year, but the first of many. We're riding on board with Ralf Schumacher, and that is Fernando Alonso in front. Just 0.4 of a second behind then. Alonso lapping a slower car. Will Ralf get him before the first corner? Yes, he will. It's one of the Minardis who've been lapped a few times here this afternoon. But look how much closer Ralf Schumacher is. That engine screaming up to 18.5, nearly 19,000 RPM, 140 miles an hour around the long, long right-hander of turn 3. He's closing him down. Look, Alonso doesn't look comfortable.
Well, if you look at Alonso's lap times in clear air, he is about 10th fastest man on the racetrack at the moment. That's how much slower he's going. Raikkonen leads by 20 seconds, having just set another new lap record of 1:16.0. He's gone. He's in a league of his own whenever he stops for fuel. But it's Alonso now, and Ralf Schumacher smelling a bit of a solid result here, isn't he, in that third-place Toyota?
Yep, Toyota have had a couple of podiums this year with Jarno Trulli already, but Ralf has yet to take that step. So that would be a special moment for him, and he definitely can see a wounded animal in front of him. I wonder what the problem is for Alonso. He talked rather cryptically yesterday of a small problem in free practice. Didn't want to elaborate on what it was. Said it was nothing to do with the engine. But that's interesting. After qualifying yesterday, he was very evasive on the subject. I wonder if that little problem has reared its ugly head again. Just a look in the mirror there for Alonso. Sure sign he's feeling defensive.
Ralph's got the better front end, stronger on the brakes, he can carry more speed into the apex. Alonso always sets his car up with what I think is undrivable amounts of understeer, but it clearly works nicely for him. And, a slow-mo then of Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota, but we need to be back on the action, please, because Schumacher, although there's nowhere to pass at the back of the circuit much, there's nowhere to pass much at all here, unfortunately, because of the high speeds and the relatively small braking zones. To gain 5 or 6 meters on your competitor around here under braking is very hard to do.
Well, Alonso soaked up 12 laps of immense pressure from Michael Schumacher in the closing stages at Imola. He's now got his younger brother Ralf behind him, again putting pressure on him. You can see from the cockpit Alonso's adjusting things all the time in this car. He's one of the most intelligent drivers in Formula One, one of the calmest drivers as well, but he's going to need all of those skills up his sleeve, because not only is Ralf catching him, but Jarno Trulli is catching him as well in the second Toyota.
Tell you who the second fastest man on the track is, and he's in 7th place, and he drives a red Ferrari. Michael Schumacher has now begun to find some pace. It's a bit reminiscent, isn't it, of 2 weeks ago in Imola. But this time he's 41 seconds adrift of Raikkonen. But Michael Schumacher now beginning to feel the car.
Yeah, but it's not as if he's been tucked up behind a slower car like he was in Imola. He was being held up in 13th place. Here he's been in relatively clear air. He hasn't been able to close down Montoya, who's kept a margin of about 3 or 4 seconds over him. 6th and 7th they are at the moment, so it's not like Schumacher's pace is mesmerising that. Montoya slightly faster on that lap as well. Raikkonen still a good second a lap faster than Montoya in the same car. Fisichella, interestingly, in the second Renault in 5th place, is lapping 6 or 7 tenths of a second faster, almost a second faster, in fact, on that last lap than Alonso. So very interesting teammate comparisons here.
Alonso's struggling, and he's reversing Ralf Schumacher back into his teammate Jarno Trulli. Trulli won't get too much further, I would imagine, as soon as he gets into turbulent air that's cascading off the back of that red and white Toyota. But Alonso will be backing. Who else will join them? Fisichella could join that squabble soon too, with, as you say, lapping best part of a second a lap faster than Alonso. Montoya repairing some of the damage from his quick spin. He only lost 4 seconds, actually, Montoya, in that spin. And but he's 10 seconds behind Fisichella. He's nothing like the pace of his teammate.
Yeah, Fisichella, with about 3 laps, will join the tail of this, but I wonder whether we might not have a few pit stops before that, because this is lap 24. And although they saved a little bit of fuel behind the safety car at the beginning of the Grand Prix, we must be getting quite close now, I would have thought, to the first round of fuel stops for these front runners. Raikkonen leads then, Alonso second, 24 seconds behind him. Ralf Schumacher, you can see there, is just 7 tenths behind. Trulli 7 tenths behind Ralf Schumacher. 3 seconds behind them is Fisichella, with Montoya a further 10 seconds back. And then Michael Schumacher is 3 seconds behind Montoya in 7th place. Coulthard 8th and on for a point at the moment in the Red Bull Racing. 9th Massa, and 10th is Webber, but he has made a pit stop.
Alonso compromised on the exit of Kampsa, lapping the Jordan, but Ralf Schumacher not close enough to be able to punish him for, well, not for a mistake, just happening to catch the Jordan in that difficult blind corner. But onto the pit straight. The problem is, with this last corner, it's so fast, you're always going to slip back, and in the pits then. So second man to blink, this afternoon is Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota. We've already had Mark Webber in for Williams.
Yeah, but Mark was in 6 laps ago. They'll be disappointed by their pace in qualifying. If you consider that these guys have all carried 6 laps more fuel than him, which is about 18 more kilos. So Williams not looking that fantastic, really, despite getting the front row quali slot for Webber. Long stop then for Toyota, plenty of fuel going in. McLaren mechanics ready for one of their 2 drivers.
I never used to read that pit board. I don't know why. You just don't even look at it, or you know it's there. You know what you've got to do, but it's sort of spelled out for you in very simple terms. But you don't actually sit there and go, "All right, okay, brake, and right, I better put a gear in then." I don't know why it's on there really.
Well, Ralf Schumacher feeds in behind Massa as the race leader. Kimi Raikkonen comes into the pits in the McLaren Mercedes. What a brilliant opening stint for him. 26.5 seconds of margin he's opened up, and that should just about get him back out in front of Alonso. This will be interesting. Alonso, of course, still having to make his stop, as does Trulli. No tyre pressure adjustments here. Remember how that tyre deflated for him earlier in the season when they played around with the pressures?
Oh, blue smoke coming out of the back of that. It's been on idle, so sometimes you do get a bit of build-up of crankcase pressure, whatever. But Kimi definitely with a little bit of blue engine smoke as Jarno Trulli also pits from 4th place. And that'll be a little bit alarming for people whenever an engine is burning oil like that. It's concerning, but it was on tick over in the pits. Tick over on these, sorry James, tick over on these about 5,000 revs.
We've got a little bit of a flame there at the back of the Toyota. I hope that's just a bit of over rev. Looked to me like Raikkonen did rejoin in front of Alonso from the very wide camera shot we had there. So that has actually come out then to be the case. That's Trulli, and someone got a little barbecue on the way out of the pits. Hopefully that car will be okay. That's an unusual sight in a pit stop, I have to say.
Yeah, and this is Raikkonen leading Alonso then, but having just stopped. So that's the measure of his performance in the first part of this Grand Prix. They're on lap 26, and Alonso will only now be thinking of 2nd place, 8 points. He knows unless there's a problem with Raikkonen, he doesn't have a prayer of catching that thing.
Absolutely right. Fisichella's interesting. He's up into 3rd place. He had to make a stop, just 3.9 behind Alonso. If you consider they started on the grid quite some way apart, then Fisichella's having a good race here, and he's just banged in his fastest lap of the race so far, a 16.7. Alonso putting a bit of a fight up here. He wants to, at the very least, have a go at Raikkonen. Remember, Alonso has got almost no fuel in this car. His stop must be coming up soon. Raikkonen has taken on quite a bit of fuel, so the weight difference will be considerable, and Alonso fancies a little go at him, I think.
Yeah, he was certainly darting about, a bit of showboating, I would have thought, because it was about 5 car lengths adrift. But let's look down the field, and Raikkonen back out on lap 27, leading Alonso, who's yet to stop. Fisichella yet to stop in 3rd now, just 3.5 seconds adrift of Alonso, his teammate. Montoya up to 4th. Michael Schumacher up to 5th. Coulthard then up to 6th. None of these have stopped, nor is Massa in 7th. Trulli, Ralf Schumacher and Webber, 8, 9 and 10, have all stopped for their first gulp of fuel.
And we thought, yes, as in comes Alonso. Jarno Trulli has passed Ralf Schumacher out on the track. We haven't seen that on our TV screens, but Trulli has done Ralf Schumacher, and in comes Alonso. Ted Kravitz.
Okay, pay attention to the rear tyres and let's see if they make a pressure adjustment. Yes, they do. So they changed the rear tyre pressures. Alonso not happy with that. They've left the fronts alone more or less. The wear isn't too bad on the back, and his engine sounds a bit rough going out of there. I wonder if that's just the limiter, but certainly tyre pressure adjustment on the rear tyres.
Yeah, they want to, I would imagine they would have put them down to try and give him a bit more mechanical grip, balance the car up. And it was thankfully the rev limiter, because his car sounded quite sweet as he left as soon as he switched that off. But there then is confirmation, and we did see it briefly in the back of our screens, that Jarno Trulli has jumped Ralf Schumacher. He's now up to what is a net 3rd place.
Yeah, Coulthard and Massa have been circulating together on the racetrack. They made their pit stops together, and a little bit of contretemps at Imola 2 weeks ago, which Coulthard said they had some... he grabbed him warmly by the throat afterwards, but Massa denies it, said they had a friendly word after the race. Certainly a couple of rude collisions on the racetrack between the two of them. It was followed by some afters for sure. And here, once again, they are together on the racetrack. The fastest men from Red Bull Racing and Sauber, respectively, in 6th and 7th places before the round of pit stops.
Hey, look how fast Fisichella is. That's a 1:16.2. That's a fraction off the kind of lap record that Raikkonen has been setting. Montoya
Really pursuing him, as you say, got to within just over 2 seconds of him. And this extra laps that he's staying out over his teammate make all the difference now when you can't change tyres and get that surge of speed with a new set of tyres after your pit stop. Your first lap out of the pits is slow, so's your second and your third. And the cars that can stay out a little bit longer get a lot of benefit from that.
I don't think the team will want Fisichella in front of Alonso. That's not what they need, is it? He's 26 points clear of him. They don't want Fisichella now, even at this early stage of the season. They don't want, and there he is pitting. They don't need him taking points off Alonso, and they don't need to be trying to circumnavigate the rules and adjust track positions.
Well, Alonso is up in the final part of the lap, turn 12 now, as I think he might well do him, you know, as Fisichella just gets back up to speed. Alonso is exiting the final corner. Look at the top of your screens, there is Alonso, here comes Fisichella, and it looks like those extra laps have made the difference. Indeed they have. Fisichella moves up into a net second place. Will be, once everybody's made their stop. Michael Schumacher has yet to make a stop. He is now in a real second place. And he's 14 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen. And going quickly, fastest first sector of anybody so far, Michael Schumacher. So pivotal to his race now is how much longer he stays out in comparison with the others. There's Heidfeld. He was 11th when he made this stop.
So the big loser then here is Ralf Schumacher, isn't it? He's been passed in the stops by Jarno Trulli, his teammate, and Giancarlo Fisichella. Not working out at all well for him there. Michael Schumacher still going around now in the low 1:16s, currently third, and that explains why he had such poor pace in second qualifying this morning. But he was 45 seconds adrift there, wasn't he? So he's not looking at a win, but he's still looking at a handy haul of points.
Yeah, I think he'd like to get a podium from 8th on the grid. That would be some achievement, but he's going to need to stay out here for quite a few laps. A 1:16.019, fastest lap of the race so far. The trademark of Michael Schumacher to just bang them in at this phase of the Grand Prix. But the speed hasn't really been there in the early stages, and we've got a long way to go here. We're only just approaching half distance in this Grand Prix. Everyone's tyres are going to be hurting by the end of the race.
Well, we know he's on the harder tyre. Everything is relative, of course. Montoya pits again. That's his second stop. Ted.
Yeah, there was a problem with the fuel rig. They must have not got any fuel in, because Juan Montoya in again. Ron Dennis looking on. I'm sure we'll hear the real reason in just a bit, but now they've managed to get the fuel into Juan Pablo Montoya's car.
That is a gift for Michael Schumacher, who's, well, he's going so quickly, he was going to leapfrog Montoya anyway. Michael Schumacher flying out there on the racetrack, and not only that, but Montoya rejoins in traffic as well, so that is going to cause havoc to Montoya's chances of scoring a good points haul here this afternoon.
Well, he lost 4 seconds with the spin, and what is that, 28 seconds? A long pit lane here, isn't it? When the cars are passing by at virtually top speed, so high penalty for making an extra pit stop. So best part of half a minute then taken out of Montoya's afternoon. Michael Schumacher does a 1:15.6, smashes the lap record set not half an hour ago by Kimi Raikkonen. The only question I've got is why in clear air wasn't he pushing harder? Was he just saving his tyres? Is the car not that good on a full load of fuel? But he's gone from doing 18s to 15s, and that is not all fuel load.
That's very strange. One of the Saubers diving into the pit lane, looked like to me. Probably Jacques Villeneuve, I would imagine. I haven't seen him yet. Yep, there he is. 10th at the moment before making this stop, but Coulthard and Massa and Heidfeld, I imagine, will all leapfrog him. So another quiet afternoon for Jacques Villeneuve after a good run in Imola, where eventually he ended up 4th after he disqualified Button and Sato. And here it's just not really working for him this weekend.
Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari is backed up behind Mark Webber. He's doing 1:18.7s, and Michael Schumacher's doing 1:15.6s. So it's Barrichello losing heavily there. He was 41 seconds off the lead, and he hasn't pitted yet, and he pits now.
I tell you what, he might have a chance of doing something this afternoon. Michael Schumacher diving into the pits. Rubens Barrichello's worth keeping an eye on as well, because the two Toyotas seem to have slowed up a little bit in this phase of the Grand Prix. Rubens appears to be doing a one-stop strategy here this afternoon. Michael too. Wow, that's not enough fuel to get to the finish, is it? Very late first stop, though.
Yeah, late first stop, short middle stint. He'll be pushing hard again now. But that's been prodigious pace. And but it still puts him out, I think, just in front of David Coulthard. Montoya, having had the extra pit stop, so hasn't made him up too many places.
No, it hasn't. It'll all shake out in a moment, but he's certainly well behind the two Renaults, circulating together of Fisichella and Alonso. Raikkonen, though, leading on lap 33, half distance in the Spanish Grand Prix. Looked to me like Schumacher rejoined behind the two Renaults but in front of the two Toyotas, and if that's the case then he has rejoined in 4th place, so he's gone from 7th to 4th by staying out longer. Marshall's waving to Michael Schumacher. I'm not sure that would put him off or encourage him. So they're obviously enjoying their day in the sun, the Spanish marshals there. And you can see across the start-finish line they go. Raikkonen leading, 25 seconds up on Fisichella. Then it's Alonso, 28 seconds behind, so 3 seconds behind Fisichella, and a further 7 seconds behind them is Michael Schumacher. As we ride on board with the Williams of Mark Webber, Rubens Barrichello is just behind him in 8th place, and with very little fuel in the tank. Rubens yet to make a stop. Mark Webber has made one, and Rubens wants past. Looks like the bridge.
Michael Schumacher, it wasn't the Red Bull I saw coming down the pit straight behind him, and which is, I couldn't work out given the pace he just put in, but has moved him up to a genuine 4th place, with everybody having to stop one more time.
Yeah, including Rubens Barrichello, who hasn't stopped yet. So Barrichello into view here. Ferrari are in the pit lane for him. Oh, Webber's made a mistake, and that's given the chance to Barrichello to dive through. We've seen that before with Webber, haven't we? 2 or 3 times now.
Seems like he fights the car as the tyres begin to degrade. Mark really struggles to hang on to that Williams, but it's given Rubens a bit of a bolt, but unfortunately he can't do much with it because you've got to come straight in the pits. He was due in the pits this time, and you can't just say, well, I'll take another couple, because there's no fuel in the car.
In he comes then. That's what it feels like to arrive at 100 kilometers an hour into your pit box. A brave man there standing with a jack, hoping that you hit the brakes at the right time. Clearing out the radiators. There's an awful lot of litter here. The more crowd you get, the more litter you get. His one and only pit stop of the afternoon, all pretty routine stuff, just clearing out the, and if they get in the radiators they send the temperatures of the water through the roof, so you don't want to stop. One of the advantages of stopping twice is you get 2 chances to clear the radiators out. There's Giancarlo Fisichella. He's running a comfortable 2nd place. He's leapfrogged teammate Fernando Alonso, who was strong in the early part of the Grand Prix, then started to fade away, and Fisichella stayed out a little longer than Alonso on his first fuel run, and that has jumped him right up into 2nd place. So terrific run from 6th on the grid at the moment for Fisichella, and really the first time since Melbourne that he's had the upper hand over his teammate Alonso. Kimi Raikkonen, though, is comfortably out in front, 25 seconds in the lead, still lapping faster than the two Renaults. And Michael Schumacher has also made a pit stop. He is in 4th place now, having been 7th for much of the early part of this Grand Prix. He got in front of the two Toyotas thanks to that long first stint on the fuel. So Trulli is in front of Ralf Schumacher, 5th and 6th, with Mark Webber, the big loser really, having slipped down to 7th place after that very early pit stop.
Absolutely, yes. Sorry, I gave you some misinformation. I thought I saw Coulthard's nose cone in the background and Michael Schumacher slotted back out into his existing position, but he hasn't. He did get past the two Toyotas, who are not lapping particularly quickly at all at the moment, and Michael in a solid 4th place, and not so far behind the 2 Renaults. He's 10 seconds behind Fisichella, 2nd place man, and just 7.7 behind Alonso. So Michael Schumacher really on the move and lapping quickly again despite a fresh tank of fuel.
Yeah, Mark Webber then going from 4th down to 7th in the as a result of making that early stop, and he's got away with it because a moment ago he was passed by Rubens Barrichello, made a little mistake, and Rubens Barrichello got past him, and then obviously Barrichello straight into the pits, so it didn't cost him a place ultimately, Mark Webber, but nevertheless another little mistake when being pressed by the car behind. We've seen it once or twice this season already, and he did it in Imola 2 weeks ago, something he'll certainly want to iron out of his game, I'd imagine.
Looking at the lap times, are pretty variable and inconsistent, but the wind has got up. It's quite a stiff breeze right down the pit straight, which slows you down down the pit straight, but much worse than that, it's a crosswind through those 2 fast last corners, turns 13 and 14, and I think that's why we're getting some variable times. Raikkonen steadied up a bit in the lead. He stopped that relentless pace that just seemed insane. He didn't stop any earlier than most, so it wasn't because he was on a light fuel load. He just was a man on a mission. He's got a 25-second lead over Fisichella, whose lead over Alonso is now down to just 3.2. Michael Schumacher 8.5 seconds behind them, and now all of a sudden struggling to match the Renault pace. It seems as if Fisichella getting in front of Alonso's just suddenly re-upped his pace.
Certainly has. He's just done his fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, Fernando Alonso, on lap 38, a 1:16.643. He's really pushing hard, as Barrichello, you can see there, who after his stop is now in 12th place, has the race leader coming up behind him to lap him. Gets the blue flag. Get out of the way, Rubens. He won't be able to do that, hold him up, that's for sure.
Well, if Rubens lets him through now, and he'll have to go on the off the racing line, so it'll be down the pit straight, and Rubens a touch naughty there, has to be said, but he'll now ease off and let Raikkonen go down what is off the racing line, but he's not easing off that much, is he? He's going to make him work for it all the way down there, and Raikkonen, understandably, not particularly happy with that.
Absolutely not. Had to go the long way round, Kimi Raikkonen. Rubens Barrichello will feel he was entitled to. As we see another super slow-mo. The tyres to watch out for, interestingly, from a wear point of view, is a front left and then transferring later in the race to the rear left. With those long right-handed corners here at Barcelona, they take an enormous amount of punishment. Towards the end of the Grand Prix, everyone very concerned about how their left rear tyre is going to be behaving.
Well, that's interesting. The Renaults are now dropping Michael Schumacher at a second a lap. What a yo-yo race this is at the moment. Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher, 5th and 6th behind Michael Schumacher, about the same pace. Webber 7th, also about the same pace. And Coulthard now, one more time, in the points at the moment for Red Bull Racing. Massa, though, keeping him honest, just 2.7 seconds behind him in 9th. A recovering Montoya after a spin and a second stop for what we think is a refueling problem. Struggling down in 10th place, can't get past Massa.
Certainly can't, and it's 3/10 behind him, but Coulthard, yeah, in 8th place, looking good. He's had 3 points finishes already this season, first 3 Grand Prix, and Melbourne, of course, took the big 5 points. Tremendous set to add to that. What can Schumacher get out of this afternoon, though? Can he get either of the 2 Renaults? That's the key question, I think, going forwards to the finish. It's going to be very interesting.
If you're wondering where Jenson Button is and you haven't been reading your papers and watching qualifying, he's on the beach somewhere, I would imagine. And what a shame. I think the fans have been punished there rather than the team. Quite clearly, they did breach the regulations back in Imola. Whether the penalty fits the crime is a matter of great discussion in the paddock here. But sadly, we don't see him. And what about poor old Takuma Sato, who's also been booted out unceremoniously? They didn't even look at his car in Imola. He was disqualified from there and the next 2 races because the team were disqualified as a whole. So you've got to feel even more sorry, I think, for Takuma.
Very interesting situation, what's going to happen with Honda there. There's a number of different options they could have for where they go from here, but for sure they're not going to take this lying down. They don't like these kind of allegations, Honda. And it's going to be a very interesting situation. You can see that Alonso now is right with Giancarlo Fisichella. He's closed him right down in that last lap. Fisichella may have a problem, but that last lap, an 18.7, a 16.7 for Fernando Alonso. So he took 2 seconds out of him on that lap alone. Has Fisi got yet another problem? He's diving into the pits. So it seems a little early. He made his first pit stop on lap 29, just 11 laps ago. It's too early for a scheduled stop.
I wonder if he's got a puncture, because he was really struggling. Ted, can you see anything?
No, they think they've got a problem with the front wing. The front wing is ready. There we go. They lift it up, change the front wing. Maybe he's hit someone. He's either hit someone or bits fallen off. It looks okay to me, but there you go. They put a new nose cone on. Of course, they're not changing the tyres because unless they're sure he's got a puncture, they can't do that. And there we go, he's on his way. But, God, that's thrown away second place, isn't it?
Yeah, he's down to 8th at the moment. Coulthard yet to go through. The next engine you hear will be his in about 15 seconds, but
the engine will be melting by now. Half a minute sitting there, coming in from race temperatures. We're wondering if he's been off the road. It looks like the tongue, maybe the underneath front section of the floor could be damaged. So we haven't seen any incidents, but at Fisichella then with a major drama, losing himself over a minute really, although he did take a little sup of juice while he was in there.
Yeah, it's dropped him down to 13th. Unlucky for some. The computer says 11th, but well, Villeneuve's already gone through the frame. So poor old Giancarlo Fisichella from 2nd to 13th in the blink of an eye. There is the part that came off. This is lap 42. Raikkonen still leading. Schumacher 3rd at the moment, on target for a podium. Everybody has one more stop to make. Well, I said he had a shot at the podium here today, but he needed Fisichella's bad luck to achieve it. So look how fast we catch up on the slower car. Look how the car in front of Jordan is just struggling to hold the line through the corner, just having to work at the steering wheel. So much less effort for the Renault driver.
He was almost over-generous there, actually. He gave Fernando the clean line and about 2 car widths as well. And sometimes those front tyres are such low pressure, they wobble like crazy. The rim sizes are limited to 13-inch. So, can we see anything on Fisichella's car before he pitted? Hanging down, certainly this is a replay. Fisichella would pit shortly after this. And this is Montoya still trying to get past Massa. They're 8th and 9th.
Yeah, this is for a World Championship point, which Montoya would dearly love on his comeback after 5 weeks on the sidelines. He's been sitting behind him for some time, but the signs are that he's going to perhaps have a bit of a go at him fairly soon. And I have a feeling that Webber is going to have a go at Ralf Schumacher soon, although he must have another pit stop coming up soon, I think. Lap 44 in Barcelona. We're riding on board with one Pablo Montoya. That's Felipe Massa in the Sauber in front. Montoya very keen to get past him. This is the battle for 8th place, the final championship points-paying position. Kimi Raikkonen is leading this Grand Prix as Mark Webber, who was the first man to pit first time round, makes his 2nd stop of the afternoon. I'm delighted to say that the boss of the McLaren Mercedes team, Ron Dennis, joins us from the pit wall. Ron, the pace of Raikkonen in the early phase was absolutely mesmerising. Were you worried at all by how quick he was going?
No, we're never too worried about going too fast, but we're trying to look after our tyres at the same time and make sure we had a commanding lead, and that's what we've got now. So we're really focused on bringing the car home safely and driving at a sensible pace. The only real remaining problem we have is to make sure we conduct the next pit stop smoothly.
So you were entirely comfortable with that stunning pace then, because we've just seen Mark Webber exit the pits with 22 laps to go, and virtually his left front tyre was bald, Ron.
I think our tyre condition is quite good. The cars are pretty well balanced. We have no understeer in the cars. The only thing we were a little concerned about initially was blistering the rear tyres, but we've got that in control.
What's your take on the other teams, Ron? I mean, obviously Alonso hasn't really been able to live with you today. What about Michael Schumacher? He made a bit of progress there. How do you think they're all going to go on the tyre wear front?
Well, to be honest, we're not too concerned about other people at the moment. We're focused on our own efforts.
Ron, I have to interrupt you there. Look at that, Schumacher changing a left rear tyre. Looks like it's punctured. Obviously, the FIA will want to take a look at that because it has to be damaged and dangerous, doesn't it, in order to be allowed to be changed?
Yeah, well, obviously, there's not much anyone can do with the flat tyre, so I'm sure it's a legitimate change.
that had, you wouldn't have seen it, Ron, because it's both McLarens. You've just got Raikkonen going past Montoya to lap him, and staying crucially out in front of Michael Schumacher. It had a lot of holes in it that tyre. I don't know if it had delamination or just a puncture. You have to put a used tyre back on, but all sorts of things. And watching out of the pit, the window here, the Ferrari team didn't know Michael was coming in. They all had to come rushing out of the garage. So it happened late in the lap. But he was marching on, wasn't he, Ron? Michael found some stunning speed there from nowhere.
Well, the reality is, he obviously, the tyres were too marginal. It's easy to go quick on soft tyres. It's very hard to go quick on hard tyres. And the first thing you've got to do is finish.
You must be delighted with the choreography of that move. While you were talking to us, Ron, one of your drivers just gently moved aside to let Raikkonen go through and allow the other one to still come through and keep Michael Schumacher behind him. I bet you couldn't have choreographed that better yourself.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see Ferrari struggling a little bit, because we've struggled ourselves in the past, but at the moment it's obviously going well. We're a bit disappointed with the fuel nozzle problem we had with Montoya, but Juan Pablo's settled down again now, and hopefully we can pick up some points.
Any reports from him about his shoulder, Ron? Is it holding up okay?
No problem at all. He's done a great job recovering after his accident, and he's doing a good job.
Michael's got a front left failure as well now, so he very nearly ran into the back of Kimi while you were talking to us. He's now gone off down at turn 1 with another. Well, it'd be amazing if there's 2 punctures on the left-hand side, unless he's been off the track badly. So Schumacher with a long way to go. Thank you, Ron. We'll talk to you later in the race. It's all unfolding and falling apart for Michael Schumacher.
You know something, the last time Ron Dennis, well, not perhaps the last time, but one of the times I remember in Hungary in 2003, he was talking to us, giving us the benefit of his insights from the pit wall. Do you remember he predicted that Schumacher would have a tyre failure? Every time we talk to Ron on F1 ITV during a race, Schumacher has tyre failures. And this is a pretty dramatic sequence here, what's been happening in the last few laps, because he's had to change the left rear for a puncture, and now the front left as well. The 2 tyres I mentioned early on that took the real punishment here in Barcelona. And these are dog days for Ferrari, aren't they?
Oh, we'll have to keep an eye on Barrichello in the sister Ferrari, because if they're tyre failures, they'll need to be doing something about that. But Michael did put in those, blistering laps. Maybe he did blister the tyres. You'd have to say that looks more than a puncture, doesn't it, than a straightforward puncture. It did look like some kind of delamination. Well,
He got himself up into a podium position, Michael Schumacher. The strategy was good. But, well, something very strange happening with the left side tyres of that Ferrari. As you say, Barrichello will want to have a look at it. He's been one stopping this afternoon, so he's carried heavier fuel around, which gives the tyres even more pain. And, well, it'll be interesting to see what condition his tyres are in. At the moment, though, Kimi Raikkonen looking very comfortable. Lap 48, half a minute up the road from local boy Fernando Alonso. We heard Ted Kravitz say to Ron Dennis, "You're not going to spoil Fernando's party, are you?" And Ron said, "Well, I certainly intend to." It's happening that way. Michael Schumacher, that is turn 10. He's got 2 more corners to go to get himself into the pit lane. But he can't go too quickly with a punctured tyre, otherwise he'd damage the suspension and the aerodynamics. He's going to try and get something out of this afternoon. He's a lap down, obviously, and this lap is really hurting him.
On the previous lap, when he looked dangerously close to running into the back of Raikkonen, didn't he? When we were talking to Ron Dennis, he did lock that inside front up, but normally that's a flat spot rather than a hole. But if you lock it badly enough, you can actually wear a hole clean through it, particularly now that we've got a wear rate situation through the Grand Prix when they can't change the tyres.
Director there managing to find a pocket of Ferrari fans amongst the grandstands there, because by far the greatest number of fans here are wearing the blue and yellow of the region of Asturias, which also the Renault team of Fernando Alonso. And into retirement goes the reigning world champion. This is the third retirement of the season for Michael Schumacher. Ted Kravitz is there.
Yeah, he's just passed me. All the mechanics knew what was going to happen. They cleared a space for him in the garage. I think the front suspension had actually broken under that. He'd had to drive so long with the tyre in the state that it was. Front suspension broken, and he was going to be out of the points more or less anyway. So they've retired Michael Schumacher.
26 points behind Fernando Alonso. at the start of this Grand Prix. Alonso holding on at the moment in second place. That would give him 8 more championship points. It will be 34, his advantage over Michael Schumacher. I know we've got a long way to go in this World Championship, another 14 races, but that will take some catching, and the body language in the Ferrari garage will reflect that. They were saying this weekend, we have got to start making inroads into this points advantage of Alonso's. They will be hoping that something similar happens to him. Race leader Kimi Raikkonen into the pits, second time round.
Just lifting the visor slightly to get a chance of some fresh air. In goes the fuel nozzle. They are heavy things to grab hold of, especially when the tube is absolutely full of fuel, and away he goes. He's got plenty of time on his hands, which he's shaking his head at, but he's just gone into cruise mode out front. He had a 27-second lead, and Alonso pits also from second place, remember.
Front left tyre looks okay, a bit worn, but still holding on.
A little tweak of front wing, and he'll release now. As soon as he goes over the line, he'll release the rev limiter, and then you get a tremendous acceleration, and he rejoins in front of the Toyotas.
Yeah, that's pretty important. Wouldn't want to have to battle with them, have them in front of him. We can see that Trulli, which is the front of the 2 Toyotas, is quite close to the back of him. Of course, the 2 Toyotas ready for the second stop of their own, so they'll be quick at the moment. This is Ralph's opportunity, though. You can see Trulli is hesitating slightly behind his old teammate Fernando Alonso, and Trulli leapfrogged Ralf Schumacher through the pit stops first time round. I think Ralf will be fancying his chances of trying to do the same back to his teammate second stops. See, Ralf at the moment seems to be slightly quicker. He wants to get by. They are in third and fourth places. One of these two is going to get a podium here this afternoon, because David Coulthard is 23 seconds behind them. And the reliability of Toyota this year has been 100%. They've got both cars to the finish in every Grand Prix. Ralf having another little look, so for sure, this is a battle for honour and for the podium within the Toyota team.
Gives Alonso a bit of breathing space. He does not need to get mixed up in that squabble, because that's going to get serious. And Ralf looking very, very impatient indeed. Raikkonen leads. He moves into lap 51. And he has definitely calmed his pace, but he can afford to do so. Alonso is free in second place. Ralf then with a good slipstream against his teammate, and just had to get out of it when he finally got down into the zone, the heavy braking zone of turn 1. So it's all going to be about the stops. We didn't see why Ralf ended up behind his teammate in the stops. Didn't appear to be any major problems, just a slower, could have been a slower in lap or an out lap or whatever. There is the punctured left front of Michael Schumacher. And why is that strange? There's a strange sort of arrow shape on it, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. The reason why Ralf got jumped was because he pitted a lap earlier than Trulli, so Trulli was able to go 1 lap longer on the fuel, and that made all the difference to him. He was able to leapfrog him in the pit stops. Obviously, it'll have an impact on the second round of stops, and we will see who comes out in front. Nice little squabble here. Ralf Schumacher, not noted in Formula 1 for being the world's best overtaker, but he certainly gets involved in a lot of scraps. There's Ron Dennis. We were talking to him just before on the McLaren timing stand. No particular sign of concern. Obviously, just making sure that everything is okay. The second stop worked well for him. Into the pits then comes Ralf Schumacher. Once again, he's the first of the 2 Toyotas to come in, and that's going to hurt him.
That pit entry there is scary, because you can attack it at absolutely full speed, more or less the same speed as going through the last corner, and you're just staring at a concrete wall, but you have to practice it and you have to get it absolutely right. Look at his front tyres, particularly our left and his left, of course. There, half of it is effectively worn away, and then it'll start sliding more and more. And as the rubber gets thinner, it starts to lose temperature. It's the movement of the chunks of rubber that give you the 100, 105 degrees centigrade you need to make these tyres work. And as soon as the rubber gets too thin, that's when your tyre starts to lose temperature.
Coulthard pits from 6th place. Felipe Massa is racing with him. They've been very close together on the racetrack. Juan Montoya also part of that scrap. This is going to be quite a significant one in terms of who finishes 5th, 6th and 7th this afternoon. I've seen Montoya having his problems with the refueling hose on his first pit stop. Had to make a second visit. But once again, Massa and Coulthard, nothing to choose between them in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's a grudge match, isn't it? Red Bull, who have been long-time sponsors of Sauber, moved by their own team, and the team they most want to be, the team they probably see themselves initially up against, are Red Bull. So a bit of a head-to-head.
Villeneuve retires. Also, Red Bull Racing taking the Ferrari engine supply that Sauber have this year for themselves next year. A lot of talk of Sauber switching to BMW. More about that later on. Here comes Trulli then from third.
Ralph's pit stop's taking longer, and you can't see why, but a chunk too, 2 or 3 seconds longer.
Just 14 to go. The two Williams circulating together, 7th and 8th, Webber and Heidfeld. Webber in front of Heidfeld, but Heidfeld quite keen to get round his teammate. These two have been pretty close together at the end of Grand Prix most of this season. There's very little to choose between them in race conditions, but Webber certainly has the upper hand in qualifying, which gives him a stronger platform. So, just 13 to go here in Barcelona. Well, this stage of the Grand Prix, Fernando Alonso is comfortably on the same sort of pace as Kimi Raikkonen, but Raikkonen did his work in the early stages of this race. Tremendous performance in the first 20 laps, doing lap times we could only dream of. It's been a quick Grand Prix here this afternoon, just an hour and 14 minutes to date, 13 laps to go. It's amazing how things progress from year to year, but 1 or 2 little headaches. It'll be interesting to hear what Alonso has to say after this Grand Prix in terms of the problems he had just around about the time of his first stop.
Yes, well, they have adjusted his rear tyre pressures, we assume downwards, and his front wing, I would imagine, up a little bit, judging by the way it was failing to turn in some of the corners. Raikkonen's lead then on lap 55, 24.5 seconds, an almost identical distance behind Alonso second, an almost identical distance behind Alonso is Jarno Trulli on 24.4 seconds. Ralf Schumacher has quickly closed that gap back up, and now just a second or behind. Montoya really flying now. He's got a chance to leapfrog both David Coulthard and Felipe Massa, and in fact looks like he's already done that. Second fastest lap of the race, so Juan Pablo Montoya.
It's a good little scrap, this one. Heidfeld looks like he's jumped past Mark Webber. That's the scrap for 6th place. Meanwhile, the fastest man on the racetrack is Juan Pablo Montoya. Take a bow in 5th place. Set the fastest first sector, and he's really turning the speed on now, because he wants to try and close down Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli. They are both only just a couple of seconds ahead of him. Looking for a good finish here, I think. '56 of the Spanish Grand Prix. You miss nothing's changed. Heidfeld and Mark Webber there together on the racetrack. Juan Montoya is the fastest man on the track at the moment. He's in 5th place. He sensed the opportunity possibly to get the 2 Toyotas who are fading a little bit in terms of speed in this Grand Prix. He's just taken a second now to Ralf Schumacher, and he's now just only 1 second behind him. Ralf Schumacher 4th, Trulli 3rd, final podium position. And Montoya closing in on that as well. Trulli just a second ahead of Ralf Schumacher as Heidfeld makes his 2nd stop of the afternoon from 8th place. Well, it's been an interesting Grand Prix that's heading towards quite an exciting finish, I think. A few battles shaping up. Kimi Raikkonen absolutely stunning in the first stint of this Grand Prix, pulling away from Fernando Alonso in the lead. Alonso seemed to slow up a little bit towards the end of his first stint, perhaps the balance just drifting away from the car. They made 1 or 2 adjustments, though, in his first pit stop. Raikkonen able to rejoin without losing the lead after his 5th pit stop. Meanwhile, Fisichella, who started 6th, jumped Alonso at the pit stops. Looking good in second place, Fisichella, but then he had a problem with his front wing, and it all went very badly wrong for him. He's managed to recover to 7th, though, having dropped down to 13th after the unscheduled stop. Toyotas seem to fade a little bit, and Fisichella and Michael Schumacher jumping up ahead of them. Michael getting up as high as 3rd then, before on lap 44, a puncture to the left rear brought him into the pits, and a lap later, a puncture to the front left took him out of the Grand Prix. His 3rd retirement from 5 Grand Prix this season, and it leaves him a long, long way behind Fernando Alonso in the World Championship at the moment.
Montoya pits for the 3rd time. Remember, of course, the first time he came in, they didn't get any fuel in the car, so he had to re-pit, and that's why he's been flying. So that would put him, he was just catching the Toyotas in 3rd and 4th, but he was in a false position, really. He'd shown 2 pit stops, but had another one to do because of that refueling rig problem. You have to say, Montoya would have had a bit of a stellar afternoon without losing that half minute.
Well, David Coulthard has managed to keep ahead of Felipe Massa through the pit stops. He's now got Barrichello behind him as well. Coulthard then on for a point here this afternoon as well. There you can see the top 8, and Ted Kravitz in the pits has some more news for us.
Yeah, I'm down in the Renault garage. I've had it confirmed that Alonso has been suffering from blisters on the left rear tyre. He said they did change the pressures in the pit stops, and now he says the balance is okay, but he's now 24 seconds behind Raikkonen and about 24 in front of Jarno Trulli, so they told him to nurse the car home.
Well, Fisichella is closing on Webber. That's going to be the battle for 6th place. Ralf Schumacher is less than a second behind Jarno Trulli, and there's a podium at stake there for one of the 2 Toyotas who look like consolidating their position in the World Championship, although McLaren, again, it looks like they're going to get 10 points for the win. It certainly looks as though Toyotas are going to get 3rd and 4th here this afternoon. It's another strong result for them.
Nursing the car home that Ted was talking about is a question of reducing the revs, shifting a little bit earlier, braking maybe 5 meters early. You can lift off and brake. Actually, sometimes you lift off early and brake slightly later sometimes to put less energy into the brake pedal. And it's amazing how fast you can still go by almost coasting like that, and keeping your concentration up, of course, as well, but just taking 3 or 4% of energy out of everything in the car, and that's how you coast and nurse it home.
Hearing from the pits that Jacques Villeneuve had a water pressure failure, so retirement for him in the Sauber. 13 cars still running. Narain Karthikeyan is 26 seconds behind his teammate Montero, who's 12th. They've lost the 2 Minardis, neither of whom got off the dummy grid and had to start from the pit lane. We've lost the Liuzzi, who spun off the track. We've lost Michael Schumacher, who had front tyre failure and possibly even a front suspension damage as a result of that, and Villeneuve as well.
Fisichella's been unlucky, though. He stopped, didn't he? It looked like he'd got a damaged car. His car was all over the show. He was holding up teammate Alonso. They changed the nose. They had a good poke around underneath, and since then he's been going quite fast. But that was strange. Then they were inspecting the nose. I don't know if there'd been some kind of, if he'd been off the road, or some kind of breakage in the front nose that was upsetting the aerodynamics underneath the car.
Well, Webber's going along strongly still. He's in 5th place at the moment. Fisichella, you can see, closing him down. Still no podium then for Mark Webber on the Williams adventure, and 5th place still his best result with Minardi a few years ago. So unless one of the cars in front, the 2 Toyotas, Alonso or Raikkonen, has a problem, he looks like matching his best result, but still not improving on it. There's the 2 Toyotas. We saw in the build-up to the programme how Mike Gascoigne working hard in the wind tunnel just to try and exact how many little bits he possibly can. And that system is working very well. Jarno Trulli paid tribute to it yesterday after qualifying, saying Gascoigne's really got that wind tunnel working well now. They bring things straight onto the car. Sometimes we test them, sometimes we don't need to, because we know the numbers all add up, and they're all little percentage gains here and there. It's staggering how much these cars have developed already since the start of the season. It really is a development race back at the factories as much as it's a race on the track. All these cars well over a second a lap faster than they were at the Australian Grand Prix. Such is the pace of development in Formula One at the moment.
Well, you're listening to the engine of a Toyota, but watching Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso, if you were wondering why that didn't quite sync up. Really strange. We're still listening to a Toyota out there somewhere, but that's the engine noise you can hear. But nonetheless, Right front tyre looks in good nick. Left front tyre kind of okay there for Fernando Alonso with just 6 laps to go. And he was talking of small blisters, just a bubbling underneath the surface of the tyre that gives a vibration and gives you an amazing amount of sliding around. It's disproportionate to the look of the tyre. When you finish, you think it was going to have craters all over it, but actually just little tiny bubbles.
Well, if it does that to the left-hand side tyres, what does it do to your neck? Presumably you're turning right so much all the time. Big strain on the tyres, big strain on you too.
Yeah, and if you watch some drivers going around turn 3, they're already beginning to use the protection on the left-hand side to lean against with their heads.
Just 6 to go then here in Barcelona.
Coulthard's not safe for a point yet either. Rubens Barrichello is really homing in on him now. Coulthard is 8th, Barrichello is 9th. A big fight too between Trulli and Ralf Schumacher. Trulli 3rd, Ralf Schumacher 4th. Finishing 4th is as bad as finishing 9th. You're just off the podium in 4th, and you're just out of the points in 9th. And Ralf wants that podium. He needs that podium.
He certainly does. He hasn't had one so far this season. Teammate Trulli 2nd in Malaysia, 2nd again in Bahrain, and Ralf Schumacher really yet to make an impact. First time here though this weekend that he's out-qualified Trulli, and you can see that he really is trying desperately to get past him. But Ralf Schumacher's been involved in his own fair share of incidents trying to get past people over the years, and he really cannot afford to take Trulli out and jeopardise what's going to be 11 points for the Toyota team if they stay where they are now.
No, his best chance is to try and frighten him off the road, but I think Jarno Trulli's ready to be frightened anytime soon. If he picks up the slipstream, obviously he's in the same car, almost certainly the same wing level, and you can see him just creeping up on us, but that's really not enough to make the difference in the braking zone. But Ralph's big enough to take the risk at the moment.
Well, Ralf has collided with teammates in the past, Fisichella, Juan Pablo Montoya on several occasions. Here's Fisichella though. He and the Mark Webber, who he's closing down on, they had a collision, if you remember, at the Malaysian Grand Prix, which took both of them out of the race and denied Webber a podium. There's not quite such riches on offer here today. Just a 5th place for whoever comes out top in this scrap, which is taking place a minute behind the race leader. So for the 2nd race in a row, Williams will go away thinking, good qualifying, but a minute behind the winner at the end of the Grand Prix. That's quite a lot of time in a 66-lap race.
Yes, I mean, that's from the front of the grid, as you say, over 60 seconds adrift. And who have we had fall out of that? Fisichella with a problem too. Montoya would have been ahead of them without his refueling problem. So, and remember, Barrichello and Heidfeld starting at the back, which gave them a break as well. So that's poor race pace from the Williams.
And the Schumacher as well. He was up there in the podium position, retiring, as we saw with those tyre failures. Jarno Trulli soaking up the pressure then from Ralf Schumacher in the closing stages. The crowd here, well, they've enjoyed their day in the sun. 24 degrees, very pleasant, with a nice breeze coming in Barcelona, the kind of weather that people emigrate to Spain for. Very pleasant all weekend. The track temperature 45, that's pretty hot by Formula 1 standards, as Raikkonen comes by to lap his teammate Juan Pablo Montoya. Ron Dennis, I'm delighted to say, the boss of McLaren Mercedes, joins us again. Ron, how are things going?
Well, obviously we're delighted to be where we are with Kimi, but we're still smarting a little bit with the nozzle problem. Obviously delighted where we are.
Yeah, that was
this is where you try and hold your breath for 3 laps.
Yeah, that was a bittersweet moment as Kimi laps Juan Pablo. Did you get no fuel in at all, Ron, at that stop?
No, there was a complete block on the fueling rig, and you know, benefit of hindsight, we'd have been better off taking Kimi's nozzle, but it's one of those things.
Was it a bit touch and go for getting round again? He had to come, he did another couple of laps, must have been getting a bit skinny on fuel, wasn't he?
Well, we were holding our breath a little bit, but we don't cut it that fine in these situations. It was really in the end quite comfortable.
Down the inside 1 second, Ron, as Giancarlo Fisichella dives past Mark Webber. That's for position. That's for 5th position in this Grand Prix. We saw that battle coming along, and he's finally got past him. Flavio's enjoying this, giving it a right hook. Nice move then by Fisichella. Ron, just one thing going forward from here, obviously Monte Carlo in a couple of weeks' time, and then the next few races. You've brought this updated kit, engines. We were talking about how Formula One is such a development race away from the racetrack as much as on the racetrack. How do you feel about your prospects going forward from here?
I don't want to tempt Providence. I'm very nervous to talk about anything until the end of the race, but obviously we're working hard to bring developments all the time to the car, and there's more things coming onto the car for Monte Carlo, but as there would be with most other teams, you know, that's part of motor racing. You constantly push.
Ron, we're watching Massa with a left rear puncture too. Are these tyres puncturing or failing?
Don't know about the other teams. We're pretty comfortable. We've still got a good trace of tread on all the tyres, but a little bit of blistering on both of our cars on the rear shoulders, but nothing to worry about.
Well, Ron, if you're not holding your breath, then you've got 2 more laps to go to the finish. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Ron Dennis there, the boss of the McLaren Mercedes team. Brilliant of him to join us during the race, getting a view from the pit lane. Fantastic insights during this Grand Prix from the man who employed Kimi Raikkonen, who gives him a car, and who is hoping that Raikkonen is 1 lap away now from his 3rd Grand Prix victory, and crucially his first of 2005.
25.6 seconds then. He's really just kept that margin, hasn't he, of exactly where he wanted it, responded to whatever Alonso could do. Alonso has got a similar margin behind him to Trulli, but Trulli's got his mirrors full. A mirror image of another Toyota Formula One car. Ralf Schumacher wants that final podium slot. Fisichella pumping in the fastest middle sector of anybody. His tyres can't be in too bad a shape, can they? And that's a tricky sector too. It's a half minute of the midfield of this racetrack. Fisichella flying, now he's past Webber, who's 6th, Montoya 7th, and Coulthard just holding off Barrichello for that final point.
Yeah, Fisichella is not going to get the fastest lap of the race, I don't think. Michael Schumacher has done that. I wonder if Raikkonen will let Montoya unlap himself. Perhaps not. He's got one thing in mind, Kimi Raikkonen, and that is coming out of this final corner and claiming his first victory of the 2005 season. It's win number 3 of his career for Kimi Raikkonen. Such an absolutely crucial one, and what majestic performance by him. We've seen him win by fighting. We've seen all kinds of things from him over the years, but this was a real humdinger of a drive by Kimi Raikkonen. Alonso allowing himself a wave for the huge numbers that have travelled down from his home region of Asturias to visit him. Over 15,000, I'm told, have travelled over 800 miles to see him, and you can see waving as he crosses the line. They didn't get the win that they came to see today, but they certainly got 8 points, a solid performance that keeps him well up there in the World Championship. Raikkonen has taken just a couple of points out of him, so he's still 27 behind, but crucially, Michael Schumacher has now dropped 34 points behind Alonso in the World Championship. There are the 2 Toyotas. Trulli picks up his 3rd podium of the season. Ralf Schumacher denied by 7/10 of a second, and Fisichella will come through in a moment to claim 5th.
Yes, Fisichella does that now with a new lap record of a 15.6 on the final lap of the Grand Prix. What could he have done with that without the mystery problem? And Webber takes 6th. Montoya and Coulthard are lapped, so they've already secured 7th and 8th place. So Barrichello out of the points. No points for Ferrari at all.
2 Grand Prix this season that Ferrari have scored no points. And there's Alonso. Tremendous emotion then in the podium coming up. There you can see the results, and there you can see 1 minute and 8 Webber behind the race winner. Fisichella clearly had much more speed in the car. The Toyotas, well, they were competitive in the sense that they were up there and one of them got on the podium, but still 45 seconds behind over a 66-lap race is a lot. That's a big margins between the front 4 cars. There you can see Barrichello missed out on a point. Massa, we saw have a puncture. He was quite competitive in the middle part of the race. Certainly David Coulthard knew all about him. And then Montero and Cartagena, the last two finishers, 3 laps down on the race winner. Raikkonen is in this championship hunt, isn't it? It may seem big, 27 points, but one non-finish from Alonso on a day when Raikkonen wins, and it's down to 17, and there's a long, long way to go, and that car looks so fast.
Keeps its tyres well, as we've said all through the season. They've just somehow managed to fail to win the races, but imagine if he'd have won. I mean, it's an if only, but Imola, of course, 2 weeks ago, which I think he would comfortably have won the race. That would have put him right in the hunt, wouldn't it? So a bit of breathing space for Alonso. Alonso's 5th consecutive pole. The Iceman will be feeling moderately warm, I would imagine, after that performance. Certainly didn't have to push too hard in the last 20 laps.
In the constructors, you see the McLaren got a little closer to Toyota, but that big 11-point haul for Toyota has helped them just in front. Montoya picking up a couple of points for McLaren Mercedes as well. Welcome back to Barcelona, where Fernando Alonso has finished 2nd in front of his home crowd, and he's quite pleased about that, particularly because Michael Schumacher didn't score any points here this afternoon. Raikkonen's taken a couple of points out of him, but that's not the end of the world. And there's Jarno Trulli, delighted to have kept teammate Ralf Schumacher behind him and to have got a 3rd podium of the season. Well, I've asked you driver of the day now for the last 4 years we've been working together. I don't think there's ever been a day when it's been more obvious, but I have to ask you anyway who the driver of the day is.
It's a class of one, isn't it? Kimi Raikkonen. And his qualifying performance this morning was quite sensational. A well-earned pole position, perfect race, and didn't get flustered when he was getting held up in amongst the back markers. And his pace was just stellar in the early stages, and pumping those kind of laps in, qualifying speed laps in, time after time after time, physically and mentally is so draining and challenging. So a brilliant drive from Raikkonen, and he throws himself right into the championship hunt.
And where would he have been if he had managed to hold on and get that victory a couple of weeks ago in Imola? As you were saying, 10 more points into his tally, and he'd have been not far behind Alonso and closing him down. So
it's nice to see 3 different chassis in the 3 different teams in the top 3. We've got a much more open year, haven't we?
Definitely have. It's one of those years when at the moment it seems Michelin has the upper hand, notwithstanding the excellent performance of Bridgestone in Imola 2 weeks ago, when Michael Schumacher was 2 seconds a lap faster than Alonso in the middle part of the race. Here we've got, it seems Michelin are dominant at the moment, and that means that any one of 3 or 4 teams can grab the glory. Sign there from one of the McLaren mechanics, thanks to the team. One of the nicer trophies, I always think, the Spanish Grand Prix trophy, this large silver steering wheel. And King Juan Carlos of Spain waiting to hand it to Kimi Raikkonen. Big hug there for his fellow countryman Alonso. He's delivered today. The crowd are happy. Not delirious, but happy.
5 consecutive pole positions then for Fernando Alonso.
Podiums.
Yes, podiums. 20 podiums for Raikkonen. They've lowered the lap record today by 1.7 seconds.
He needed that. He knew it coming here, especially after the disappointment of Imola 2 weeks ago. Ron Dennis saying there were no hard words after that. 15 minutes of anger, and then he was okay, but no anger here today. Tremendous privilege. Ron Dennis, who we had the pleasure of speaking to during the broadcast, collects the Constructors' Trophy. An emotional man. He's about to get doused in champagne, no doubt. Juan Carlos has been in one of his two-seaters, driven by Martin Brundle, of course, a McLaren two-seater, and Fernando Alonso, or Alfonso, as my bin man calls him. Very charismatic little fellow, and he is looking very strong in the championship, isn't he? But he knows after today that he's got a serious rival. One of them fell away, Michael Schumacher, with his punctures, but Raikkonen really declared himself here this afternoon.
Fisichella gave him a hurry up too, didn't he? His teammate, before that mysterious aero problem at the front of the car. Looking forward to finding out what that was all about. Jarno Trulli did a good job, really, and Ralf Schumacher, for some reason, losing a couple of seconds on each pit stop, either the out and in laps or some kind of slower procedure while he was in the pit.
Well, the 115,000 Spanish crowd came here expecting a Fernando fiesta. Instead, they got a Raikkonen rout. But the good news is, it's game on for the World Championship.
Congratulations to the three podium finishers in the Marlborough Spanish Grand Prix. Third place for Panasonic Toyota, Jarno Trulli. Second for Mild 7 Renault, Fernando Alonso. And breaking Renault's runs of victories this year for West McLaren Mercedes, Kimi Raikkonen. Kimi,
After all the promise, after all the poles, after all the speed, a great and reliable run from start to finish.
Yeah, it was very good. The car has been perfect the whole weekend, and we knew that we should be pretty strong in the race. I think so. In the beginning, I pushed until not really even until the pit stop, and then I saw that I was leading so much that there's no point to really anymore put the car under so much pressure, and I just keep the pace up. I didn't go full speed and win quite easily. Finally it happened. Last race was close already, but I'm very happy for myself and also for all the people who's been putting lots of effort in the car. Everybody's working very hard, and finally we got some results. The test team has done very well. Everybody's working perfectly, so hopefully we can now start winning more.
Absolutely. It was a slightly disruptive start with the safety car coming out. Talk us through that, and also your thoughts in the closing stages, bearing in mind the problems you've had this year as the checkered flag approached.
Yeah, of course you can never be 100% sure before you cross the finish line, so there's always something can happen. But so far, this race it was perfect. I had a small problem on a pit stop. It's something with the engine. It didn't run very clean when I tried to pull away, and I don't really know what it was, but not a major problem. And on the start of the race, I had already a little cap, and then I saw in the third corner or fourth corner some yellow flags and safety car signs, so I slowed down straight away. But I don't really know what happened in the start at all, because I guess it happened on the backfield.
And going into this race, a very technical circuit, a lot of debate about how the tyres would perform with these new regulations. Your thoughts on that?
No, the tyres were very good. I think so. The circuit is not as hard on the tyres than it used to be before, now when they have resurfaced it. So I think so. The tyres, I could have gone much quicker in the end if I would have won, but there was no reason to push anymore. So I would say that the tyres worked very well. They lasted very good, and they were straight away good after the start.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Fernando, a great day for you. Obviously not the win there. First of all, what were your thoughts when Kimi was pulling away from you at those speeds in the early laps?
Well, I was thinking that it was not possible to follow him. He was too quick at that moment, and also I was a little bit conservative with the tires, because I knew that was the risky part of the race. And after that, I didn't feel the car too good, so I was not pushing too hard. And then the car started to be better and better after lap 25 or something like that. And now at the end was perfect, but like Kimi was no time to push, because in front I had nothing, and behind me was Jarno 20 seconds behind. So when the car was good, was no time to push. But anyway, this second place here at home is like a victory for me. These 8 points in the pocket again is a fantastic result for me and the team. And again, for Monaco as well, because Minsk start quite on the back for quali 1. And Monaco is one of the circuits that should be an advantage. So I really want to finish this race, and in the podium is a dream for sure.
Are you surprised at the difference, though, in pace between McLaren and Renault today?
Well, I think it was not too representative, this race. I think we will have problems to beat McLaren at the moment, because they look very strong. But also we are strong, and I think Giancarlo set the fastest lap of the race. So I think we are there. We are very close, and we need to find something more. I think the next race is coming some new bits in the car, so we are totally confident that we can still win in races.
And of course, you have reliability, your 5th successive podium today as well.
Yeah, 5 races, 5 podiums. As I said many times this year, this start of the season is something that I never expected, and I hope to continue like this. I have to finish races to score points, and this is the only way to be happy and to have even more confidence race by race.
Thank you very much. And Jarno, your 3rd podium, and you weren't that confident yesterday, but a podium finish today. Great drive.
To be honest, yes, I have to say that was one of my best races in my career because the car wasn't very good, but I really fight very hard, and I managed to keep ahead of Ralph. I had a different strategy. I was quicker with more fuel, a bit slower with less fuel. This is because the car setup. But in the end, it was a really tough job to be ahead of Ralph, which was very quick, and probably today he probably deserved a third position as well as me. It's good because Toyota is doing a great job, and I will never thank enough the Japanese for what they are giving me.
So from your point of view, flat out the whole way, getting the maximum from the car?
Yeah, right from the beginning to the end, I had to push really, really hard. Even through the pit stop. During my first pit stop, I've had a problem, I think, with the fuel rig. But in the end, everything worked fine. So it's a great feeling to be again on the podium.
Congratulations. Kimi, just returning to you, what is it about McLaren, Finland and Barcelona? Mika Häkkinen, your countryman, 3 victories here. Now you've got a victory. There's something going on.
Yeah, it seems to be a good place for us, for the team and for the Finnish people. But I hope that it would have happened already last race, because it would have helped us a lot in the championship, because basically we don't have much to lose anymore. We need to really win the races, and that's the only chance to get back in it. But it's gonna be difficult. But it's a long season. You never know what's gonna happen in the races. So we just need to give our best, and hopefully we can get back there.
You certainly did that today. Congratulations. Now if we could have some words from you in your own language in Finnish.
No, mukava fiilis on nyt, että tuli voittaa, että viime kisassa olisi pitänyt jo tulla, jos olisi auto kestänyt, mutta nyt kaikki toimi hyvin, eikä ollut mitään suurempia ongelmia, että vähän moottorin kanssa jotain varikkopysähdyksen aikana, mutta ei nyt mitään semmoista suurta, niin tietenkin kiitos tallille ja kaikille ihmisille, ketkä siellä työskentelee, että ne on saanut auton näin hyväksi, ja toivottavasti nyt pystytään voittamaan lisää kisoja.
Thank you, Kimi. Fernando.
Bueno, en primer lugar yo creo que tengo que dar las gracias a toda la gente que ha venido aquí, todo el público que ha apoyado, y me he sentido pues realmente una sensación increíble, ¿no? El ver a la gente levantada, nunca parada o aburrida, sino divirtiéndose en un gran premio. Esto es la primera vez que lo vemos, y no solo yo, toda la Fórmula 1 tiene que agradecer a la afición lo que ha hecho por este gran premio. Y para mí la segunda plaza pues como una victoria. Me he sentido un poco incómodo con el coche en algunas partes de carrera, pero bueno, al final estos 8 puntos pues también hacen mucho para mí, para el equipo y para la gente en general. Me va a servir para salir de los últimos en Mónaco, en la crono, que también creo que es muy importante, y un fin de semana perfecto e inolvidable.
Thank you. And Jarno.
Sono felicissimo di un altro podio, il terzo podio di questa stagione. Non riuscirò mai a ringraziare abbastanza la Toyota per ciò che sta facendo. Ho dovuto attaccare tutta la gara perché onestamente oggi non ne avevo molto, ero in difficoltà con la macchina e mi sono dovuto battere non solo con gli altri ma anche con la mia macchina. Però ero veloce con molta benzina, un po' meno, con meno strategie diverse rispetto a Ralph, e sono riuscito a batterlo. Comunque la stagione è ancora molto lunga, però le cose stanno andando molto bene.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.